Hi, teacher number 4. Today let's talk about promise. What's a promise? An oath, a contract, a covenant, a vow. Lots of things require those. For instance, if I was a bride, I would make a vow to my husband that I'm going to love and honor him forever and ever. Now the question is, will I honor that or will I break that promise? Now suppose I was a scout. When you are a scout, you take a vow. Now I wonder, when Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts take a vow, do they keep that promise or do they break it? Suppose you're going to court. You have to swear on a Bible to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Is that true? Do you say what's true? When you sit down in that chair and they ask you questions, will you promise to tell the truth or will you break the promise? What about doctors? When they get to be a real doctor, do they have a vow, make a promise that they're going to try to help people? I think they do. And would they break their promise? What about this? This is a contract. I have to sign it. Someone else signs it with me. We have to promise that what is written here is true and that we will abide by it. So if you have a contract, are you going to promise to keep it or are you going to break it? And what about this? The flag. How many of you say a pledge allegiance to the flag? That's honoring God because we are under God when we do that. We promise to honor our country and those in charge. Are we going to keep that promise? Or are we going to break it? And the last one is this. This is a baptismal font. Now, when the ministers go up and baptize a baby, they take off the lid and they sprinkle the water on the baby. Can the baby make a promise? No, but parents do. Parents say they promise they will raise that child in a godly fashion. But then, you know what's scary? The minister turns around and asks me. I'm sitting in the congregation, and they say, do you promise to help raise this child knowing Jesus? And I say, yes. And I'm wondering, have I broken my promise, or am I keeping it by teaching you today? Well, what do promises have to do with our story? Well, King David. Back to King David. He's king this time. And this time there's no Saul. Saul's dead. And so is Jonathan, his best friend. His best friend. So David is kind of sad about that. I'm wearing blue. You know what blue means? Have you ever heard anybody say, I've got the blues? They're sad. You know what you can do when you have the blues? You try to help somebody. You stop thinking about yourself and you try to think about helping somebody else. Have you ever done that? While David had the blues, he remembered something. Do you know what the sign language term is for remembering? Watch me. That means remember. David remembered something about Jonathan before Jonathan died. Jonathan said, would you please take care of my family? And David is just now remembering that. So he goes out and has a helper to see if any member of Jonathan's family is still alive. And lo and behold, there is. A person by the name of Mephibosheth. Well, when Mephibosheth was little, something awful happened to him. Somebody dropped him and he was crippled. In his feet, in his toes, in his legs, I don't know. But he never was able to walk correctly again. But he was Jonathan's son. And David finds him and says, bring him to me. Bring him to me. Well, now, Mephibosheth was scared to pieces. Because you know what happens when a new king comes to reign? He gets rid of all the old king's family and says, to heck with them, off with their heads. So Mephibosheth is scared. But he comes before David and he hangs his head. Humbled, frightened. And David said, no. Because I loved your father, Jonathan, so much, I remember a promise I made to him. I'm going to take care of you. Hey, you're going to come and live in my palace and eat my food at my table. You'll have a banquet table of food all the time. Can you believe that? David didn't have to keep the promise. Jonathan was dead. Who cares? Who knows? But not only did Jonathan and David know, but God knew. And God expects us to keep our promise. You know, God's made some promises in the Bible. Remember that one about He's never going to destroy the earth again in a flood? And what's He going to send to prove that? Remember? Yeah, the rainbow. But what did He tell Abraham and Sarah? Guess what? You're going to have such a big family. Did that promise come true? It did. It sure did. So you see, what God has promised, He never breaks. You cannot break His promise. He will not break His promise. And this is what He promises us. If you believe in Jesus, His Son that He sent, if you believe He died on the cross, His blood covers your sin. I know that sounds crazy. Blood covering sin, ick. But that's the way they did things. That meant sacrifice. That means giving something up. God sent His Son to save you and me. And if you believe that, then the promises God has made to you is that, guess what? When you die, you're going to come to heaven and be with me. And everyone that you love, that loves me, they're going to be up there too. At my banquet table, it's going to be great. No tears, no one sick. It's going to be beautiful. If you feel like you would like to ask Jesus in your life, would you talk to your teachers or your parents? That'd be great. Now, I'd like to say, I promise I'll see you next time. But I don't want to break a promise because I'm just not sure that's going to happen. But I will say, I hope to see you next time. Bye. For as high as the heavens are above the earth, so great is His steadfast love toward those who fear Him. Psalm 103:11.